our speakers. Some of you may be aware of the Ignite format that we've used in the past at our events. So we've varied it a little bit for this just to make it a little more online friendly. Each of our speakers is going to get 10 minutes to show slides and present their story in terms of how they've used innovation to grow and sustain their organization or business. My first presenter is Ross McIntyre, and Ross is the Director of Community Initiatives for Camp Couchiching, drawing on his experience in this role and his work as faculty with Georgian College. Hi, Ross.
Hello.
Postgraduate work in social enterprise and community engagement, Ross will outline the pathways to innovating within a nonprofit setting for the betterment of your organization and the people that you serve. Ross, I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Carol, and thanks to the CDC for thinking of me and for Camp Couchiching for this. Just sharing my screen, and I'm hoping that will work. Perfect. Camp Couchiching is a nonprofit charity. We were established in 1946. And I know just seeing the participant list, I'd like to see a lot of familiar names in that group, as well as some new ones as well. So I'm going to talk specifically about innovation in Camp Couchiching and how we've done that through community engagement over almost the past 10 years. I'll spend a bit of time specifically too on the topic of COVID and how we've adjusted and modified for that. Summer camps were one of very few organizations that were specifically mandated by the province in a decision to say no overnight summer camps this summer. And so for us, that's been a challenge, right? And so definitely going to chat about that. But I'd love just to start off with a question that I like to put out to groups, and that is essentially take a minute or take 10 seconds and think of what comes to mind when you think of a summer camp or an outdoor education center that is often run by camps. It would be great to get your thoughts on that. So if you want to drop your answer into chat or just think on it for a few seconds, then that'd be great. What comes to mind when you first think of camp? My guess is your answer to that question is something along these lines. There's lots of fun and activities and campfires and canoeing and s'mores. These are things that are are often very popular, and it comes to our mind, right, when we think of what summer camp is. And you know, I don't want to knock any of these things by any means. They are all 100% true. They're all things that happen at our summer camps and in our camp communities. But underneath all of that is this industry that thrives very strongly on the idea of creativity and the idea of human relationships and connection. And so around 2011, we kind of took those two concepts and said, well, more formally, those could be referred to as community engagement, right? Relationships is actually engaging with our communities within camp as well as beyond. And creativity is often kind of a synonym for innovation, right? So specifically, social innovation is what we have spent a lot of time on over the past 10 years. So I will outline just a bit of this background and then get into more of the here and now of what we're doing. So we wanted to create and innovate new year-round outlets for the positive outcomes of camp. And we asked ourselves these questions on this slide. We knew that what we were doing every spring and fall for our outdoor center, and as well as every summer for kids, was incredibly meaningful and leading to all these great outcomes. So how can we broaden this? How can we find new ways to benefit the community as well as our organization? And we came up with the Camp Couchiching Community Initiative. And this had kind of a pillar within the organization, in addition to our summer camp and outdoor center, was to provide programs and resources with social value to our community. And so part of our process in this, it was developing a theory of change. This is an end product, not what we started with. This was after much discussion and many different hits and misses in terms of how we came together on all of this. But I pulled this quote just to highlight the theory of change as a tool for social innovation within any organization, but in our nonprofit setting, it was very valuable. Social innovation is mostly about doing things differently, disrupting the status quo, creating change to make things better. But big change means big resistance to that social innovator's plan. That's why a theory of change process is useful. So it's a way for us to test what is going to actually work, test our own assumptions about how we're going to approach our work to benefit others, and land somewhere that is comfortable but also successful. And so these two pieces, our outdoor center and as well as our main summer camp, these were comfortable for us. These were traditional, but our disruption or our way to innovate came through largely the Camp Couchiching Community Initiative. So all of these different inputs needed to be threaded with innovation, right? All of these different things we were putting into our plan over the years needed to have some innovative aspects to it, right? And so that ranges from our actual program delivery to our funding and resources, planning and development, and everything really. And so in terms of our actions that we took and our outcomes, we find this all comes kind of full circle back to our organizational mission, which is fostering individual growth, excellence in camping, and an inclusive community. So we asked ourselves these key questions, and we continue to ask ourselves these questions. What problems are we solving? How do we do this? Why should we do this? And that first question is maybe one of the more easy ones to answer in terms of what problem are we solving? It wouldn't be a stretch, I'm sure, for most folks on the call today to think back to your own childhood and all the different key parts of that and experiences that you had and ways of healthy risk taking that you engaged in, and to notice how different that is these days for kids. And I'll make a note, especially over the last 6 or 7 months, right? It's been an incredibly different environment for young people. And so ultimately, that's our goal, is to solve the problem of different social, emotional, and physical obstacles that are in the place of children's experiences these days. In terms of how do we do this, over the years, we've always focused on kind of these three areas: the innovative programs, meaningful partnerships, and ongoing measurements. So spending a bit on this side specifically, because really it's the core of what we do at Camp Couchiching, and we are a very program service oriented organization. Prior to COVID, we had a bit of a head start. We were already doing a lot of things, I think, since 2011 in our local community throughout the year, and that allowed us to build relationships with local schools through our free in-school programs. We ran pop-up camps at different locations as well. We have a experiential tutoring program, leadership credits, lots of work around food security and community gardening, social justice programs with local schools. So quite a lot. However, COVID, of course, was a big game changer for us, and it really pushed our outlets and our innovative work to kind of a new space. If camp is based on relationships, typically in-person relationships, and that creativity part, the relationship piece kind of, the bottom fell out on that somewhat, but the creativity and innovation part had to really scale up for that. And so a few examples that we've really brought together, I think, during this time is the idea that groups like the Preservationists, which is a teen group that's based out of community gardens. As soon as community gardens were deemed an essential service, we were able to have that group together safely, socially distanced, outdoors. And that group was interesting because they switched their focus from a kind of a social enterprise model where they were wanting to create value-added produce and food and be able to sell it, to just one of distribution, where they wanted to focus on just getting food and produce to those who needed it. And so it's kind of the ideal format for outdoor education in that way. We had have a program called Camp in a Box, and this is a great example of a community partnership as well, because this was, like many of our programs, the start of this was funded by the Community Foundation of Aurelia and area. And with that initial funding, we were able to distribute 50 Camp in a Box programs for local families. And the box includes over 20 activities for children to do in a self-guided way at home or outdoors in their yard. And it brings a bit of camp to them. And so there was enough left over in that pool of funding as well that we were able to do a second round of that and continue it throughout the rest of the year. So that's something that we're building and we want to continue to build. Another interesting innovation is the Camp Couchiching Learning Centre, which is the timing of this talk couldn't have been better, because when the CBC reached out, we were actively developing a whole new model, a whole new pillar of our organization, and that is in the Camp Couchiching Learning Centre. So for a number of years, we've had the idea of transitioning to an outdoor school. It's been on our radar, and we've done reports, and we've done our own research and feasibility studies around that. And so we saw this as an opportunity to move forward on that, to push that further. And so, in terms of a program space for families, specifically children, to come learn in a small cohort, learn largely in an outdoor setting, get support with the curriculum-based learning that they are all taking part in. And so this becomes a win for camp, right? Because it's an additional sustainable way that we can build out a program. It's a win for parents because I think as lots of folks have perhaps experienced the idea of being a teacher along with our full-time jobs and everything else going on in our lives, it's a challenge. And then of course it's a win for the kids because they have an experience that will be very positive and very geared towards their own learning styles. So this is something that we're actively developing and building out that we are planning to launch in the new year. And it's something that we are continuously working on right now. So it's actually why I was a little late joining in today as well. And so all of these are the undercurrent of all of this is meaningful partnerships, whether that's with funding agencies or whether that's with local schools, whether that's with small grassroots groups or community gardens, whatever it may be. These are all significant and essential really for our work. It's really this collective impact approach, right? The idea of taking a collective impact approach to our work between organizations is key. And also it's the new way of doing business. It's highly collaborative in a very genuine and meaningful way. And we need to get there, I think, with our organizations. And then lastly, too, measurement is something that's always key, right? Like any nonprofit or charity, we always struggle with how do we measure these good things that we're doing? And so for us, that means that we need to constantly be adjusting and adapting. So in addition to revenue and participants, all of this stuff, we're increasingly focusing on the lived experience of people that we're trying to support, the different narratives around our work and our programs. This is becoming increasingly valid as a form of measurement, and it's a way that we can't deny those voices of the people that we're aiming to help. That's an accurate way to measure our success. So we were able to build on our mission as an organization, and then specifically the goal of this new pillar of our organization, and this continues through COVID as well. It's kind of why we should do this is in the sense that it filters back in to our work. And lots of other things happened as well. Everything ranging from new revenue streams to failing at things and learning and adapting that way, of course. And the benefits to the broader community had this kind of ripple effect as well. And so one piece that I want to build towards is the fact that this can work everywhere, whether it's a nonprofit, a for-profit, a social enterprise, a co-op. This is all something that can be fine-tuned based on your capacity, your resources, your mission, your interests. And so I'm a firm believer in this, in the sense that this innovation approach can work virtually anywhere, whether you have a low cost and low time investment or higher cost, high time investment, or anywhere in between. There's options. And these are examples of some of the things we've done over the years in these different kind of quadrants. But there's a variety of accessible ways to get into this space. And I think the other thing we've experienced is that once you start working like this within an organization, it's very challenging to go back. It's very challenging to become a standard organization again. I think once you build in these socially innovative practices and use community engagement to your benefit, it's hard to revert back to older ways, which I think is a positive thing as well. We do have all these common associations with camp, however, and we still sometimes will get that question, what is it that you do for the rest of the year? Or it must be fun to just be able to play all the time. So we'll still get those questions, but it's very fortunate. I feel very fortunate as well now to have a very compelling answer to that question when people ask, what is it you do for the rest of the year, or do you get to just play all the time? So that's something that is it's been really great to see over the last 10 years, and that was my best attempt to condense about 10 years of innovation into 10 minutes. But thank you so much for listening, and I'm so glad to answer questions a little later on today too.
All right, thank you, Ross. That's amazing. Camp was something that you look forward to. It's one of those things like a vacation and other things that It's makes the summer and other parts of the year, and it's wonderful to hear that you're still finding ways to bring those experiences to kids.